YouTube, what's going on? Fomo3d. I'm gonna share a little history on experience with Fomo3d in the P3D hourglass contract. So P3D, a small contract that was written on Ethereum, came out February, around February 28th. Well, they launched, they had a timer because it was already operational a little bit before February 28th. So they had a timer and they launched their contract. I remember when the contract was at, when I got word of the contract, it had about 157 Ethereum in the contract. Those were the days. And I believe it was June, late June, in the middle or towards late June, Fomo3d came out. Possibly even in July. That period was so crazy. There was a time, I think it was one day in Fomo3d, when Fomo3d launched, so many Ethereum entered that contract, so many dividends were distributed. I mean, it felt like a breakthrough, right? I mean, it just, there was nothing like it at the time as far as dApps were concerned. Fomo3d long contract, like now let's be clear, Fomo3d issued a long contract first, and then they issued a short contract. In the long contract, people were buying keys. People were buying keys in the hopes of, I guess, perfectly trying to time how long the countdown, like a 24-hour countdown timer, went down, and people had to, were playing the game where they had to try to buy keys right at the right time so that they could amass, so that they could win the jackpot. Okay. Round one was, it was divided in rounds. So people were speculating that round one would take forever. It would take forever because they did not, people were just making their own inferences and speculating on this thing. They were saying, how could anyone win this jackpot? I mean, someone won, and whoever won amassed, and it was a person, because the person was active on Discord after they received their jackpot, received the winnings. The total amassed to about $800,000 US. So that experience sort of lent a great deal of credibility to Team Just at the time, right? And again, we're talking about the beginnings, the early days of Fomo, of Team Just, their P3D contract, and also introducing Fomo. When Fomo, this is about a thing that happened so well and then turned to crap. The attention that this contract received was stellar. The marketing, the trolling, everything was working. And so it was almost like a pristine masterpiece, the way everything unfolded. And then when that first round finally ended, I forgot how long it took for that round to end, but it didn't take long. People were, saying that it was going to take months, possibly never end. It didn't take too long. I don't even think it took a month, maybe 2 weeks, maybe less than that, from what I can recollect. And when that person, the winner, earned 800,000 K US value of Ethereum from that contract, I mean, that just it just spawned sort of like a continuation of people trying to, interact with the contract and play the game, the FOMO game. So volume subsequently sort of slowed down considerably. Of course, the second round, the round started to end, and the jackpot, became smaller and smaller and smaller. All the while, during that time period, Team Just was talking about introducing Fomo3d short contract, right? So people now were anticipating the short contract to come out and saying to themselves, I learned, what to do with it. They thought that the short contract was going to be another chance similar to the long contract, where they can just, put their ETH in, time, get in first, and win the jackpot. They thought it was going to be something similar to the long contract. It was at a point where Team Just made an announcement. I don't know if it was some punk or there's a guy a person whose name was some punk, or even Justo, who exclaimed, "Don't buy into the contract." When short was coming out, in the same day, hours before that contract launched, announcements were being made in the Discord group by Team Just, when he specifically exclaimed, "Don't buy into the contract." Guess what people did? Don't buy into the short con game, the short contract game of P3D, of Fomo3d. Let me be specific and clear. He said that, and people did the exact opposite. Again, there were issues where the Ethereum network was so clogged. It got to a point where people just could not get in, right? And folks were pissed off. I mean, pissed off. This was happening in a matter of minutes to an hour, because they thought that the mechanics and the inner workings of the short contract was similar to the long contract, where the same dividends that people had or earned by holding on to those tokens, the P3D coins, they thought that they would amass the same earnings with the short contract, except quicker, because it's supposed to be a short contract, right? I think lasting like 5 minutes, versus the long contract, which is a 24-hour run per round. So people were pissed. Short contract folks were pissed off. They were just cursing out, Team Just. They were and then the crazy part about it is, and this is the whole thing with the mind games and what turned me off about P3D. Team Just would say, "Well, yeah, we told you not to get into the contract. Don't play. Don't get into the contract." And essentially telling the people, the holders of P3D, just don't get into it. Let everyone else get into it, so that the holders of P3D can reap the benefits from all the madness that was taking place with people just jumping into the contract, and all the P3D holders would earn the dividends from people buying and selling into the contract. In that time period, and I think from the long contract is when P3D amassed 85,000 plus Ethereum in the contract, because at that point, before the long contract was launched, they were up to maybe 20K. Their all-time high was about 20K. I'm just basing this all from memory and experience. So my figures, are general, and definitely there could be some slight inaccuracies, but overall, what I'm saying, I'm trying to present, share my thoughts on the experience with that DAP, and identify, highlight a few points. The problem, the problem with that whole thing with the short contract, P3D, and people were taking it. They just made like this kind of parody and jokes, and were trolling, and just it was like a psychological brainwashing. If you didn't know what you were doing, you definitely got wrecked by what these guys were doing, by what the team did. And that just like turned me off with the whole thing, because you're talking about a thing that happened, a phenomenon with P3D that could have made in a long term, it could have made a long-term lasting positive effect in the crypto market, and for everyone involved with the crypto market, crypto space. This is when the time period when, even I think there was rumors about Vitalik even holding on to some keys in the Fomo3d contract, and putting some Ethereum and having some keys so that he can whatever have a chance to win at the jackpot. And whoever won, and once people started winning again, it added some type of validity and legitimacy to Team Just. It helped to pretty much put a stamp on the market, and brand them as, listen, this is official. These guys are not trying to scam people. They're trying to do something that's decentralized and help the market expand and grow and evolve. But it just, something changed, man. After short contract, and when people were just angry and pissed off, and basically shitting on Team Just for tricking the people, because the people felt duped, because the short contract worked exactly the opposite than the long contract, right? So people were feeling like they got robbed. Folks were pissed off. They had their Ethereum clogged in the network, because I guess the network couldn't scale so all the transactions that were taking place at the same time. We're talking about hours long of delays. We're talking about gas fees that went through the roof. Just to send your transactions, the gas fees were so high, it was crazy. It was crazy, and that added to, I guess, the demise of the team. That just, and then that's another thing too, because they were great at sell shaming. They shamed anyone who didn't have weak hands. I mean, who didn't have strong hands. Which also was just kind of unnecessary, because look at today. You have people who are still, diehard P3D believers and blah blah blah, rightfully so, but all of those things turned out to cause people to just leave the contract, sell. I mean, I remember seeing so many transactions. When you looked at the user interface, they had these green bars that would always come up telling you how many people buying into the contract, how many people selling, and it was happening at rapid pace. You saw things of sales of like 9,000 ETH being sold at one time, and you're looking at your wallet, you're looking at the dividends going up at the same pace. It was euphoric. I mean, it was just like, wow, what is this? Can this continue? Can this go on? Can this keep happening? Like it. And they just dropped the ball, man. They dropped the ball. Something that is, I guess, that started to be an experiment, that started to, just be something sort of comedic in nature and not serious, turned out to be something else, I guess, that they just didn't see. They didn't have a long-term view, because it's about money. It's about money. And you can't keep playing with the emotions of people, especially when it surrounds with money. And that's what was taking place. So August came out with the Fomo3d short con, and it soured. That was a crazy whack experience, and they had everybody waiting, till now. I guess everyone in that contract waiting till now to see what was taking place. And even during that time, you saw some funny stuff going on. within the team and within the in the Discord group. Just I remember this one guy. I guess he was a developer. His name was Inventor. He called himself that was his name in the group. Inventor was a nondescript kind of like person who kept to himself, who was kind of like a very integral part of the team. Very, very integral player in the team, and I think he was basically the developers kind of turned their backs on him. And then I mean the developers meaning like the heads of P3D, Manso, and possibly Team Justo, whatever, kind of treated Inventor like crap. And that was another thing that was just like, wait a minute here. And then you want to think about like the talks of how bots were inundated in the contract, were in the contract like this, just, messing with the launch timers so that people botted the contract like crazy, where, look, it was almost impossible for you to just get a fair chance to have a good experience in the contract. So that all those things plus more contributed to the demise and of the brand, of the Team Just pseudo brand, right? Fast forward till now with Just Game. Man, this just, at one point I thought Team Just was up there, was just like the top DAP. I thought they were the top DAP. They're the DAP that had the most Ethereum so far to date, right? That's just one indicator. One person won a jackpot, almost $1 million worth. I mean, they were doing things, man. They were doing things that just showed that, wow, the potential of what the market can evolve to become. And then they just dropped the ball. They dropped the ball and I kind of can see why maybe the figures who originally were part of P3D are not the same people who are in it now, because the style is different. And all this wording stuff, this mental crap that the way they announce things, oh, wait till you see her with Curvy, her, and it's just nonsense, man. Just this way that they speak, Fomo3d, it was just this psychological brain mind fuck that they were doing for those who were just eating up, everything that they had to announce, and it just turned out to be a wrecked fest. That's it. Turned out to be a wreck party. You want to lose, just get into the contract, interact with the contract, and lose big. People lost so much. And then those who stayed in the contract, they just held on to the contract, held on to their earnings, held on to the dividends, hoping to ROI. Now you fast forward to Just Game, and it's just a complete total letdown. And that's why, I mean, you after a while you have to become you have to really become objective as best as you can while you're interacting, while you're dealing with crypto. You have to try to still take a view from a different perspective. Try to be as impartial as you can become, to see from experience what history has shown you. Because now whatever they come out with, it's just they have to work 2, 3, 4 times as hard to even regain a glimpse of the recognition and notoriety they had a year and a half ago. And I don't know if it's going to be possible, because the whole inner workings are different. You could tell, it's just different. The way that they announce and certain things that they're doing and whatever, it's just, man, whatever. Nobody cares. That's been my experience with Fomo. That's why I don't. The top 2 dApps for me at one point were P3D and Gandhiji. Now the number 1 dApp once again is Gandhiji.io for longevity, for the fact that they haven't scammed, for the fact that their contract is completely decentralized. There was this thing with P3D that it still felt like if you're not a part of the clique, you just are not a part of the fold. They made you feel like you're an outsider. It's not, and it's just all those social engineering types of like just BS that takes place with that team. That nah, I give a shit about them, man. Who cares, man? Who cares about that? Because you're playing. This is another thing with the whole thing about games. You have a serious working contract that can really evolve to become something great to help people amass wealth, and they just take it for a joke. That's why Gandhiji's number one, because that contract is not working in that same fashion where it's taking people's money, wrecking them, where they can't even, feel like they are a part of a community, where they get shamed for selling, where there's no advancement taking place. That's not the case with IND. It is what it is. So forget about all that. That's the whole thing about, never mind the hype. Forget about all those things. That'll mess you up. That'll make you feel like you are less than a man or less than a woman, because especially when you know better and you jump into these things and then you get wrecked, and all you got to do is look at yourself in the mirror and be like, man, I did it again to myself. For what? And then whoever is on the receiving end, they're just laughing at you. And again, it puts a shit stain on the cryptocurrency market as a whole. It puts a shit stain on everyone who's playing in the crypto space, whether we realize it or not, indirectly or directly. Okay? Because the powers that be who can't stand crypto are looking at this and using these little experiences, these moments where people are getting scammed, these projects where individuals don't care, developers are not taking themselves into account, not taking responsibility and accountability for their actions, promoters are not really being responsible in delivering proper content, proper informational, resourceful data to the masses, and they're saying this is why this thing needs to be wiped out. Okay, this is why these things need to be wiped out. Forget about all that stuff. Go and look at what they're doing with YouTube and the crypto YouTubers. Man, the conversation and the saga continues. I'm out.